Good morning. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host, Ellie. And we had a terrible thing happen yesterday. Another school shooting, and I don't want to get into it just yet. Um, uh, and very sad for these parents, and uh, the other students will have a very hard time going back to the school. But it was the last 2 days of school. I know there's fears across the country of copycats. It happens. Um, but I'm going to move on and I'm going to come back to it because I'm going to read over what we know. And like everybody else, I would rather get into the cause of it and looking at the Parkland shooter uh, and what he had done and some other shooters. So, um, with that, I would rather, boy, you guys want to hear about Hyundai cars, am I right? Yeah, you guys would rather hear. No, I think you guys have had enough because, all the news shows this morning with nothing but the shooting, and that's just wrong. Okay, Hyundai Motor Unit in America is recalling 281,000 vehicles in North America over seatbelt pretensioners that could explode. Now, the recall comes after 3 injuries or more um, oh, I lost my place already, were reported due to an explosion event of the crash front driver's seat or passenger side. It's not happening in the back, just the two front seats. That the seat belts, they could explode upon deployment. Two injuries were also reported in the United States, one and then one in Singapore, where the seatbelt pretensioners that are a part of the system that locks the seatbelt into place during a crash to provide additional protection. The occupants now, the recall of some, at, it's the Elantra hybrid vehicles. And the all of these models were recalled earlier and went on a different manufacturing issue. So the United States National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has said that all the accidents of the Elantra vehicles they've already repaired under the previous recalls. And so now they have a new recall until the fix is completed. The new recall includes 239,000 vehicles in the United States and about 42,000 in Canada. So it's these seat belts that they say when I went and found a live report to find out exactly what's happening. And what it is upon impact and um, your protection from your steering wheel pops, the seatbelt explodes. So good grief. And then they found out that if you slammed on your brakes, they were exploding. And then they found out they were sometimes even exploding when you connected them. So Hyundai needs to get rid of the exploding seatbelts. So if you have one, get a hold of your dealer and see if yours is defective or if you need to take it in and get it replaced. Um, so wow, huh? Exploding seatbelts. But that is a recall that I thought was very important to get out this morning. Um, then we have there's leaked reports about the Uyghurs. And I keep an eye on these Uyghurs. I call my Uyghurs. Um, and even though they're Muslims, folks, they still don't, and a lot of them are Tibetan monks that are in woven into these Muslims and these Uyghurs. Beijing is yet again facing the heat over these human right violations, and China, which is said to be facing incarceration in Xinjiang region of the country. The recent reports leaked photos, narratives, and shocking pictures of the atrocities that the community faces. The United States has accused Beijing on the highest level of authorities of being involved in what the West calls a genocide of vigorous other than Muslim communities also. Antarctic speaking people in the western region of Xinjiang were appalled by the reports and jarring images and the internment camps in Xinjiang. And those reports are those images that are being shared online. Unfortunately, uh, we are seeing that not only are they being um, not allowed to be spoken of because it could possibly get back to China. Uh, I think it's because they just don't want this getting out. Um, and not only that, but they're banning it on things like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And if you talk about it too much, they're going to get you for it. Um, and so this genocide and crimes against humanity, predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and Muslims of other ethnic and religious minority groups. They have imprisoned many different religious minorities, and it's happening to them also. And it remains ongoing. And even when the League of Pictures and official documents were allegedly provided, um, into the detention force, and they still no one has done anything about it. But folks, look how long we put up with what Hitler did to the Jewish people. It went a long time before anybody really went over and looked, and then everybody went. And these pictures and these violent methods enforced on these inmates, and the photos. They have been hiding the photos for a very long time, or making sure that nothing gets in, or no cameras get in, and if you're caught, no cameras get out. And they figure that 1 million of these photos now appear, and it shows officers restraining. It's nothing that we haven't seen, folks. It's just showing the same things we've seen, except for now they're starting to pay attention to it. So the photos appear to show officers restraining hooded, shackled inmates while other guards wearing camouflage uniform with firearms. Uh, and basically, they have been beating them with the rifles. Now, that's not, I mean, I've seen worse. I've seen worse of what they're doing. Um, they're doing water torture. They're doing everything they could do to these guys, and it's to get them to submit to China's ways. It's not that they've done anything wrong or they're being punished. This is just um, they won't submit to China and Beijing. I should say they won't submit to the CCP. The Chinese people aren't like this. Okay, so they've been verified by multiple news organizations as well as accusations that come out from time to time. Um, so the human rights chief, Michelle Bachelet, is on a visit to China, and it includes the Xinjiang cities of Urim, Kwai, and Gashkar, and has already met Chinese foreign minister. And the Chinese media claims that Bashley has congratulated Beijing on promoting the protection of human rights. The United States has criticized um, due. They have criticized, and it's due in the chief's visit, as it claims that she had not secured sufficient access to China, and she was basically denied all allegations while speaking with quite a few on back here in the States. It was a video call, and the Chinese president defended his countries on human rights. And so the human rights progress of the United States reiterated its view and called the visit a mistake after the leaked pictures from the inside of the system of mass incarceration surfaced. Meanwhile, Germany too called out China over its alleged atrocities. They say that they might have to make another visit over there and look a little bit deeper into just pictures to see if maybe they can talk to some of the prisoners. Um, what? Oh, okay. Well, not true about what? The Uyghurs or the cars? All right, now I want to get to the school shootings in Texas. And we know there was 19 killed at ages of 7 to 10 years old after he opened fire at an elementary school in Texas that occurred in the town of Uvalde, a small community about an hour from the Mexican border. Um, they say that they believe that, well, now we know, he shot his grandmother before heading to the elementary school around noon, abandoning his vehicle, and he had a handgun and a rifle. The shooter's name was uh, revealed to be Salvador Ramos, and was shot by law enforcement, and three adults were also killed. Um, let's see. They say DPS is assisting in the investigation at this point. He did act alone. Um, we've all seen the pictures of the kids running, and they teach. The school teaches about 500 students, mostly Hispanic, uh, economically disadvantaged. Um, uh, and who cares about what Biden said? He did okay. Biden did come out, and he seemed very agitated and mad. And so, what do you think they said, or what do you think they're mad at? Assault rifles. Well, you heard it was a handgun and a rifle. They always make this mistake. Now, folks, one of the first school shootings was in Olivehurst, California, and I lived there. We lived in Marysville, which is the adjacent city. Um, and they deemed this kid, what it was, he didn't shoot the school up, he shot his teacher. He was going to, but the kids jumped him, I believe is what happened. So this kid had mental issues, hard mental issues. And so over the years, I have watched all of the school shootings. I've watched all of these mass shootings. And every single time, there's one thing that they've all got in common, and that is depression. Now, who cares if they're on antidepressants or not? Because a lot of them really weren't. It's pre-stages to where they don't understand. Now, look at the school shooting in Columbine. Uh, they did have assault rifles on that one. So yeah, they can blame that. Now, I'm not here to say it's all about the guns. No, let's not talk about the guns. Let's talk about what's going on in these school shootings. Now, this school shooting, the very, very first one, it was how horrible. There must be something done about this. We can't let this go and become a habit of students. Um, the how the atrocity of it all, and we need to ban the guns. That's right off. Well, the problem with it was there are more guns now than there was with the first one. Okay, and the other one that I want to note is not all school attacks happen with guns. There have been so many attacks with hammers. Pocket knives is the big ones. And we're talking, even out here in the South, they got buck knives, which are the big long blades. Um, it's more, there is more weapons used besides a gun that is a hammer in one case. Um, there was one student that walked up to the teacher's desk, had a hammer, and struck the teacher in the forehead. Um, with the claw, not the hammer part of it, the claw of the hammer, and killed the teacher. Um, so it's not. It's kind of like over there in the UK when they took away all the guns. Um, then they started using machetes. They started using swords. They started using hammers and knives, and a kid is only going to get a hold of what they can get a hold of. Now, if they easily can get a hold of a gun, they're going to get a gun. So why did this kid need two guns? I mean, you can only shoot one at a time. See, that's my whole issue with these school shooters is they take miniguns when they could take mini clips. If it's an assault rifle, you just put another clip in it and you can keep shooting. Uh, or if you even have an automatic gun. So, um, like I said, I don't really want to blame this all on the gun. I want to blame this on what the schools have found out over the years that they're not listening. The reason they brought in officers, and they're called resource officers, is because of the uprise of how hostile the students were getting. And then of course the school shootings were happening in the mix of it all. And see, what I did was I insisted that the schools here in Conway have where you can't just walk into the schools. And this was after Sandy Hook, that you had the doors are locked and you have to be buzzed to get in. And then all the other doors are locked either side. So this is weird, but and this is at our elementary schools. Now, I don't know if this school had that, but it needs to. All schools need to have this, where they get in, they find out what they want, and if it's a parent conference that they have with the teacher, that's fine. Everybody else don't get in, and then they discuss it with the school resource officer of whether or not they get further into the schools. Now, see how protected that is? I mean, you might have the people at your front desks being shot or hurt, or the resource officer, but the resource officer normally carries a gun. Well, when a lot of this started happening, folks, they started bringing in these resource officers, which was great, because what it did in between 1990 and the year right about 2000, the school shootings had actually dropped. And then going into 2000 to right about 2005, then we started seeing a small buildup once again. Well, then they started bringing in, as you've seen, the metal detectors into the schools. They started bringing in more and more resource officers. They started getting parents that were coming in, veterans, and all of them, they would do three to five, and the bigger schools even 10 resource officers into these schools, which then again you've seen a decline. Well, then we had, guess what did we hear on our streets for the last few summers from BLM and Antifa and our very own politicians? Defund the police. um, And so what they did is it wasn't just defund the police. All these schools got hit up with defund the resource officers at the schools. Um, then we started seeing a lot of mental health issues that were on the rise. And of course, even in here in the schools here, that I was very concerned about. Because you realize, folks, back in 2008 to oh my goodness, I was pretty much a big part of the school. I was up there tutoring. I was up there reading with the kids. Um, I worked in the library, and it was only just to, keep my granddaughter safe. I was kind of worried about it with school shootings. And what I was starting to see is they started pulling more and more of the resource officers out, and had like the gym teachers, male gym teachers, that were keeping an eye and would roam the halls without no weapons on them. And it didn't help. Well, then right into about 2013, I'm going to say, I started seeing that they were bringing in counselors to the schools. Um, Less resource officers, more counselors. And it was because the Arkansas School District had found out that it wasn't really that the kids were getting angry and a little tiff with one another. It was actually mental health and depression, more autism, more kids having issues with learning. And so they brought in these counselors, and lo and behold, it started helping a lot. And so Arkansas School District, they took it to uh, the big statewide um, conferences with other schools, other teachers, other states, and they started telling them about this. And so, of course, they started bringing them in. Well, about 2014, real close to when we were looking at maybe Trump running, that's when it was defund the police, defund the resources officers, defund mental health. Uh, uh, what they were doing is they were bringing in officers that had been trained in mental health and violence. They wanted to get rid of them. So they got rid of them all the way down to then we are looking at Parkland shooter that happened. Well, he was severely depressed. He lost his mom. He was living with somebody else. He was collecting a lot of guns. He was saying he was going to even shoot up the schools. But the problem is he had a mental health issue, and that's what we're seeing in the schools today is a lot of mental health issues. So am I saying okay, bring in counselors and let them deal with it? No, no, they need to bring back these officers. The kids aren't going to do something if there's an officer with a gun that's right next to them. Not only that, but we're finding out just in the last few years, there's more different weapons being brought in. They had one at the high school. Right, I live right across the street from the high school and an elementary school. And last year, they had these kids came in with knives. They didn't want to get caught with a gun. So who knows? It sounded like the shootout at the OK Corral if they did. But they brought in knives and they were going to get into a knife fight. So see, it's not really about the gun. It's about the mental issues that our kids are facing today. Um, um, yeah. Oh, that's right. I got a picture with. I should have brought it so you guys could see it. Um, I was brought in McGruff the crime dog into Arkansas, and I wanted to wear the suit, but they wouldn't let me. And so, what we're looking at, folks, is a lot of mental health issues with these kids. And our schools have found out if they brought in orange juice, they cut back a little bit on the chocolate milk thing in the mornings, but they're bringing in fruits and veggies for the morning and orange juice and different juices. And they're finding out that these kids are doing a lot better throughout the day, and they last past lunch before they start getting antsy. And what we've been able to find out is preservatives in the food are very damaging. And not only that, but high sugars, low sugars, they're saying could cause uh, depressions. Now, as we go into when we hit the pandemic stage and these kids having to stay home, they weren't allowed to be around their friends. Most of them, um, low income, don't have these types of food in their houses. They're going hungry, which causes a lot more depressions. And then we opened it back up, and we're still about taking guns away. We're still about defunding the police. We're still, we don't want resource officers in our schools. Um, and so if you put all of that together, you're just asking for a school shooting. And not to be mean on this, but that's what is going on. And I'm glad I was a part of learning everything I did working for the schools, from 2000 until a couple of years ago. Um, and people don't know this unless they go to the schools and they listen and they find out what's going on for their kids. Now I have another one fixing to go in there, and honestly, I'm thinking homeschooling her, but I don't, I'm so busy. I don't have the time to do this. But I don't think it's safe anymore. Um, I had a grandson that was attacked at one of the schools here, as much as I thought I had safe schools. Um, he was attacked, and it's messed with him for quite a few years, and other things that he's had. But we have got to pull back, and the only way you're going to be able to do is to fight the school systems, school boards. Oh boy, here we go. And they're wanting to bring in National Guard into um, um, these school meetings to keep parents in line. So now I'm thinking I'm going to go in, and if I raise my voice, so they're going to tackle me to the ground and hog tie me and throw an apple in my mouth to keep me shut. Because I don't care. They can hog tie me. I'll still talk. A lot of you guys know I talk a lot. That's probably why I do this show. But you know what I'm saying? They have school boards now that are anti-cop, anti-counselors. Uh, let's just deal with the kids, and if they bring weapons to school, we'll handle it. And believe me, that's exactly what they're saying. And when you go to vote, if you got school board members, get rid of them. Get rid of them. Bring in new ones. There's too many new ones willing to come in that don't want all this stuff that's happening in these schools. Um, yeah, William said when it comes to killers, you have to fight fire with fire. You really do, and you got to have it equal. You got to have an equal balance. When I was in high school, they brought in, we called them rent-a-cops. We didn't call them resource officers. We called them rent-a-cops. And, we couldn't figure out why they had it. But then we had riots. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess we need the cops because we have too many riots at this school. Um, and it did help for the most part. I went through, just so you know why we were having riots, I went through the race riots in the 70s. And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. I seen some things that is still burned into my brain, what that was going on and happening, and the attacks. Um, and it didn't just stem. Now, get this. During the riots, when they would leave and they would decide to go to another school, they would go to elementary schools. Um, and so I think it's, if you're not that big of a tough guy, you're going to go to the weakest. And I think that's what this kid did yesterday. Um, so far, has anybody heard that this guy was related to anybody there yet? I mean, I kind of searched quickly this morning, and I didn't hear of the reasoning, his reasoning of going there to hurt little kids. Um, he killed his grandma, but it didn't say the reasoning for going to the school unless it was just the closest school and he was in a blind rage. Now, that's the other things that's happening with these kids. They are saying that blind rage amongst kids over the age of 13 has increased about 30% across this country. So we could even be looking at junior high shootings. And this is something that's always been unheard of. It's usually the high schools. So this is something that's getting worse. So we have these school boards that have been on the woke side. And what are they doing? They're pitting one student against another student. That is only going to start trouble. You cut back on the counselors, you cut back on the police officers, you get them angry at one another for one race against the other. I lived through the riots, and it's not pretty when you have one race that hates another race, whether it be um, white versus black or black versus white, um, whites versus Asian, or back then we didn't even really like the Mexicans that were coming up into California. We didn't even like them. That's what we called them, Mexicans. So they pit them against each other now, and they wonder how come we're having uprise in school shootings. I believe there has been um, at least 8 in the last few years. Where has it been on the news? Well, it wasn't politically motivated to use it. They right now they want to do away with the guns, and so they're using it politically to get everybody angry. We got to get rid of all these assault rifles. Well, not a lot of these school shootings aren't. They're not using assault rifles. Only Columbine. Now there's been one or two others, but for the most part, it's been a handgun or a rifle. Handguns are the majority of it. Boy, I'm going to get the handguns taken away because they can be hidden easier. They can be put in a backpack. They can be put in a locker. So most of the time, these school shootings are using handguns, not assault rifles. And I wish that the media would just stop it. Um, so, um, so then we're looking at going from the school board into your city council, which is also woke. Okay. And the city council should really be making a lot of decisions on what's going on in these schools. Because I found out I had to go to the city council. I started the school boards. This was just to get resource and locks on the doors and try to get crime, the McRuff dog here. So I had to go to city council. And, they looked at me like I was a gun toting grandma from hell. And, first they said, do you, um, their big thing was, are you a gun owner? And I said, well, yeah, I'm a gun owner. And why? Well, what difference does it make? I hunt. And I like to go shoot targets and I like to go to the gun range. Oh, so you like shooting. And they started turning this all into, I was this horrible grandma that totes guns and want to shoot things. So that was, I tell you what, and then they said, time's up, bye. And I was like, come on, people, give me a little more time. Nope, nope, see ya. You're a gun toting grandma. Get out of our hall. We don't want to hear you no more. So I had to go back again and again. Okay, so as you try to explain to these people that their view of the schools are wrong, that we need the resource officers, then you hear, well, we want to defund the police. Well, no, let's not defund the police. Let's keep the police and let's keep the resource officers in the schools. Um, and this has been going on for 15 years, folks. They've been wanting to defund. Get this, they've been wanting to defund and get rid of resource officers in these schools as the gun violence in the schools, they claim, is getting worse and worse and worse. So they have really not done a thing to these schools. Now, when Parkland shooter hit, now, folks, I really, really did think they were actually going to start doing something. No, then the protesters hit to the streets because of Trayvon Martin and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and some of these others. Oh, we got to get rid of the police. Okay, let's get rid of the bad cops because there are a bunch of them out there, really bad. But why get rid of the resource officers in the schools? That was one of my questions that I ran around senators and congressmen. And they hang up on you when you call them and ask them this because they have no answer. They just know they want to defund the police. They want to bring in counselors, and they want counselors to calm down these people with guns. Well, even those counselors don't even want to do it no more because they're getting guns pointed in their face. So with Parkland shooting, I really did think that they were actually going to see that these are kids that have got mental issues and depression, anger. They come from torn families with the rise of deadbeat dads or deadbeat moms, more alcoholism, uh, more parents on drugs than we've ever seen in history, more parents on methamphetamines and heroin and the stuff that they get so addicted to that they're not in their right minds. And so this is what these kids are dealing with. And that these kids go to other homes and see, oh, how wonderful this home is. And I wish mine was like that. and it just drives them deeper until the point to where it just takes a bully at school to drive them over the edge. And get this, every single school shooting, the victim, eh, the victims are the people that get shot. But what it is this even happened in Columbine, where a pack of kids that thought they were better than everybody else in the school started bullying the weak. All right. And so when they bullied the weak went and got a gun and they shot these kids up. Now, so when we look at this guy, what I'm wondering is he thought, since he was kind of weak himself, maybe he decided to go to the elementary school and shoot kids weaker than him. Because, if he would have went into a high school, he might have been jumped. So where do you go? Junior high. Well, you could still get jumped and you still might have teachers with guns. You go to an elementary school, that factor is going to drop. And I think he thought this through. And I think we're learning a lot from this Parkland shooter because the kid isn't all there. He is, um, I watched, he did 11 hours of interrogation. And about half of it was him sitting in a room by himself, plotting of what he was going to do, what he was going to say. And then they came in and he acted weird. And I thought, no, this guy's a fake. This guy's a fake. But over time, you start seeing this kid isn't right. He's not right in the head. And we are into, I think I have an article on it, into, I believe, jury selection. And get this, there's two people on the jury that, got T-shirts kind of like "Let's Go Brandon," but supporting the Parkland shooter. Who the hell does that? Who supports someone that shoots people? And that's the mentality that we got right now. And so, I took a look this morning really quick on the rise of um, depression in school age kids. And since in the last 3 years, it's up bad. It's really up bad. There is more kids in counseling than ever in history. And so, what's wrong with these kids? Is it like I said? Are they not eating right? Is it the parents on drugs? Is it they're being bullied at school and nothing's being done? How many times do these kids go up to the office and they pull both kids in and it's a he said, she said, and they kick them both out? The bully gets all upset and hunts them down and beats them up again. It's a vicious circle in these schools. And the thing is when I found out when I worked at these schools is kids are mean. They are really mean to one another. And if there's a couple bullies that get together, you better believe they're going to hunt out the scrawniest little girl on the playground and they're going to torment her until she cries. And then they get a kick out of it. And this has been going on. William, well, heck, maybe I might have to have you on for a school shooting show, William. That's right. Well, William said children need to be taught that there is no excuse for murder. That's right. But look at the games they play. Look at Call of Duty or some of these other ones where you get a gun, you put it in nice. Well, girls, they get nice, pretty little pink guns so they can go shoot people. The games are more vicious. The games have got subliminals in them. China's definitely fessed up to that. There's just so much. There's no excuse that this is going on. We have learned, and the top specialists in this country have actually looked into this, and they're finding out these kids got a depression problem. They have family issues. These are kids. Some of them are not only on antidepressants, but they're seeing not a counselor, a psychiatrist regularly. Not Columbine, the movie Colorado movie theater guy. He was seeing a psychiatrist for years, and look what he still did. because he claimed that his psychiatrist wasn't listening to him. He just told him be happier. Well, you could tell someone to be happy, and if they go home and it's a miserable home life, that's not, you can't go home and say, okay, we're all going to be happy tonight. Happy, happy. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of as we progress into the family units being ripped apart, um, being on drugs. I mean, I could only, I fled California pretty much, and I was seeing the drugs and families on the rise. Um, and not only that, but the viciousness of the gangs. The gangs were on the rise. And, the gangs will push a kid to commit horrible things to happen. That they'll, the gangs have got the guns, and what do? They give the kids the guns. So if you're wondering, oh, they went and got mom and dad's guns, not necessarily. A lot of them got the guns on their own. And mom and dad didn't even know the guns were in the house. Was it the Columbines shooters? Didn't their families not know they had all them guns? They knew they had a couple of them, but they didn't know the amount that they had and the amount of ammunition. Um, and they're making it sound like a kid can walk into a gun store and buy a gun and walk out. That's how stupid MSNBC is. Yeah, I heard that one a couple of years ago. I was like, how does a teenager go into a gun store and purchase a gun and fill out all that paperwork that you got to be 18 years old and show an ID? How is that happening? No, it's not. It's just something MSNBC made up to go along with the politicians to take away the guns. And I don't want to turn this into let's take away the guns. I want to turn this into that we need to help these kids, whether it's your neighbor kid, the one that lives down the street, the one that passes by that's looking at the ground. You ever see those kids? Uh, I mean, I have seen plenty of them that come home and they're coming home from school and they're staring at the ground like they don't want nobody to even know they're walking. And they're walking very quickly. And when you ask them what's going on, they say, no, kids are messing with me at school. Most of the time, they're doing that. So if this is a kid from an elementary school that I'm watching go down my street, what happens when he gets into junior high and the anger builds? And what happens when it gets to high school? And they decide, I'm fed up with these kids. They have been tormenting me since third grade, and I'm just done. I'm done with them. And see, that's what's happening. And do we blame the schools? In a way, yes. You don't know how many times I've went after the schools on do something. Don't just say, oh, we'll talk to little Johnny, and you don't do that no more, little Johnny. Don't pick on, the little girl over there. And of course, since she tattled, of course she's going to get the repercussions, and she's going to get picked on more. See, that's what's happening. And instead of kicking out the bully and saying, you know what, if you come back and you bully again, you're out. You're out. Now they're doing it that way, but in the wrong ways. They're putting them all before judges. And when the kids refuse to go to school, they're throwing them in front of the judges. And get this, they're putting the parents in jail. So your kids go and they bully somebody, you're sent to the judge, and the judge puts the mom and dad in jail. Maybe, now, that might be a good thing. But then you got the victims that won't go to school because they don't want to be bullied. And they're putting the parents in jail for that. So the parents are going to jail, and that's their solution to this, is putting parents in jail right now. Um, so how is that going to how does that work in correcting the kid that's eventually going to get a gun and start shooting people if you're going to punish his parents? See, you don't. They're not helping these kids. And I don't know how many times, and I bet you guys heard this yesterday. I know y'all went on and listened to some of it or everything you could find on it. Is oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How is this happening? We need to do something. Something's got to change. We got to change laws. And they say this every single shooting. I've watched it since Olivehurst. And we're talking um, 1990, right about then on. Well, every single time. And I turn on the TV or I turned over to the shooting yesterday and I started hearing that same line. I said, I can't handle it. I can't watch this because I have been telling me and quite a few uh, um, school officials, administrators, police officers, resource officers have been saying this has been going on all these years and that they need to do something. Yes, they need to do something. They need to structure the school back when we went to school. I'm not saying let's bring the paddle out and paddle the bully, but it might be a good idea for a SWAT or two. Oh boy, the schools are going to get me for that. Get this, Arkansas. It wasn't until about 5 years ago was the last school that didn't allow paddlings here. My son got paddled, and was I mad? No, he deserved it. If he's going to go picking on girls and do things wrong, then of course they had him bend over. He took 3 swats and he came home. Did he cry? I don't know. He didn't tell me. Uh, but what's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? What's wrong with keeping the kids? Remember, we used to, anybody used to bang erasers after school because or I will not do that again, writing it on the chalkboard like forever times. There was punishment back then. Nowadays, they just send them to the office. They have somebody in the office call their parents and, okay, don't do it again, and you don't do it again, and we're going to kick both of you out for 3 days. And when you get back, you're going to be loving each other. Well, they come back and they're pissed off at one another and they're ready to fight even worse. Um, if and I'm not saying bring back corporal punishment into the schools. I'm just saying there needs to be a punishment. But if these kids are, you call the parents and find out, are they seeing a counselor? And if they're seeing a counselor, then you work with the counselors of the school to work with the counselors and the professionals to figure out what to do with these kids. Because get this, a lot of the counselors they send to these schools are they are counselors that have been hired in to these state-run or it's usually the ones that take Medicaid or Medi-Cal or whatever. I know it's not Medicare, so it's Medicaid. And they send these counselors to the school to counsel kids or be there when the kids become unruly. Well, see, they're cutting back on that and the resource officers. But this has tended to work a little bit, but it just goes to show you that they did start for a point to bring counselors in to help these kids. But when the school doesn't act on a bully or on a kid that has been pushed so far that they're saying they're going to do it. Now, moving on to them saying it on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, or whatever they use, or Facebook, they are telling people on their Facebook or almost, let's just go with um, Twitter or some of the other ones that they're putting this stuff on. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. And nobody turns them in. Uh, you know, uh, you got to teach your kids when your friends are talking like this, you need to get a hold of somebody and let them know that this is happening and they're going to do it. Now, the thing with Parkland shooter, this is why I say, boy, he's up front with me today. They did turn him in. They did turn him into the police department. They did turn him into the school, and he was ignored. He was ignored. And not only that, he was too old to even be in the school. He was I think he was like 20, close to 20, 19 or 20 years old. He didn't even need to be there. Now look at this kid that this just did this, went to the elementary school that he's too old to attend. So who was he picking on? Who was he after? Um, Adults as well as kids, 7 to 10 years old. So, yeah, okay. So what I'm going to go over a little bit on, I'm going to end up doing this whole show on the school shooting. I didn't want to do that. Um, uh, Okay, now Williams said it's because he crashed his truck in a nearby canal. That's why he entered the grade school. He was just going to kill somebody and was angry about not graduating from high school. But, well, see, he hunted a school down. But what do you think he would have went back to his school? I don't think he would have. I think that's an excuse. I really do think that it is an excuse because we're finding that unless these kids, um, like what I'm seeing with a lot of the shootings around the country with these kids going to the schools, like the Parkland shooter, um, he was mad at a couple of people that had messed with him, but he didn't go after them. He went after as a whole. So, and they're saying when they wake up that morning and they decide to do this, and this is how Parkland was, he wasn't in his right mind, and neither was the Columbine shooters. When they got up that morning, they weren't, they were in a fog, they say. Um, in the notes that they have left and people that they spoke to, I guess, that morning, that it was like a fog and they were ready to do this. And Parkland shooter, he woke up in a fog. It seemed unreal, dreamlike. And we even the Colorado movie theater shooter, he said the same thing, even all the way back to the Olivehurst I'm telling you about. They woke up, they were in a fog, and like a dream, and they just got the stuff together and they went and shot up the schools. But see, it's not just the schools. We're seeing this in shopping malls. We seen it at that one concert. Where was that at? It was a concert, and they shot from the one of the high-rise motels. What caused him to do that? See, was he paid? Was he depressed? Was it a lack of police at the concert? That or the easier way for him to escape? There's a lot of factors in this, but normally it's due to low self-esteem, depression, or they are already have mental issues. Um, there are rare cases where these guys are just angry. Those are gang members, though. Gang members will go shoot one another just because they're angry. Why do gang members shoot people? For to make themselves look better, to get into the gang, and not only that, it just makes them happy to do it, and it makes them look good to their homie. That's what I'm finding out. I have been talking to some gang members, um, and I'm getting a lot of info from these guys, and I can't get them on my show. They're too scared because you know what'll happen if they come on my show. They're dead. They're dead man. They're a dead man if they come on. If they're seen giving anything up or saying it, and what they do is they drive around town and they're filming some of these gangs, and they can't say nothing. Their voice can't be heard, but they're exposing the gangs for what they're doing, and they're hostile. And they're saying they're getting kids as young as 8, 9 years old. And you say, well, my gosh, where's the parents? The parents are strung out on drugs. And Lee will, I've had Lee on here, and if you haven't seen Lee on my show, he'd even tell you these, and some of these um, main cities, like up around Michigan and New York and Chicago, especially Southern California, um, the it's either mom that's working 2 jobs and she's not there, or the parents just don't care, or they're strung out on drugs. And what choice they have but to join the gangs? And then, of course, they're given a gun. They don't. They don't go to the local pawn shop and get the guns at 8, 9, 10, 13 years old. They're given the guns. And this gang member told me that, yeah, he opened, they'll go and on one of the big gun guy that has all the guns, he opens his trunk and just hands them out. And next time they see him, his trunk is full of guns again. Where are these guns coming from? It's not from the gun shop. It's not from the pawn shop. You know, these are, they're getting these guns. They're illegal. They're stolen. They're brought into this country by illegals. There's a lot of things to it. But we should not have to see another school shooting ever. Now the school's over for the summer. Can you imagine what's going to happen on our streets this summer as we get into um, the summer months to where they are free and clear to go hunt people down that they want? Um, I was listening to um, uh, a podcast, and it's someone I never even heard of before, but it had a really good title. And I worry about that because of clickbait. I don't like clicking on something and it says, "Oh, we're going to talk about this," and then they never ever get to it. So I got to get to, of course, Biden's 1800s thing. But we got to do something over this summer to curb what we're going to see happen. There is going to be a crime surge over the summer with these kids that has never been seen before. Why do I think this? They have been allowed to be rowdy. They have been allowed to protest, riot, uh, go to riots, and where they start bashing the windows to stores. I've seen even little kids go in and take things. Uh, I mean, good grief. The parents are in there taking stuff too. Little Johnny, grab as much as you can. Mama's going to sell it at the flea market this weekend. And that's what they're doing. And because that these guys don't need 50 pairs of tennis shoes size 10. They're just not going to. And most of the time, if you see them at the flea market, you see this brand new merchandise. And I looked at Toad Suck, and I didn't see none of that. So, but we didn't have the smash and crab up here as much as we did down Little Rock. Um, but we have got to stop it before next year. And we need to start calling these city councils and the school boards and demanding that they get these resource officers back in. They're doing the counselors somewhat, but we need resource officers back in to start being mentors for these kids. It's not just they're standing there with a gun. No, these are guys that they could be a veteran, they could be an ex-cop, they could be a mom, a dad, a grandpa that is willing to go in and help these kids out, not to be so angry. And when they see them all mad faced and slamming their lockers or slamming their backpacks or something, they go over and they say, "Hey, what's up? Are you having a bad day?" And they talk to them. And that right there could prevent a school shooting. That's what I was taught with McGruff the crime dog and the sheriffs that came with them. Um, all it takes is a moment to stop an angry kid and say, "Hey, somebody does care." And you know, taking the guns and doing away with the Second Amendment and all this crap that these Democrats, it's all political motivation for them to do away with the Second Amendment. And don't listen to them. Quit watching that stuff. Oh my gosh. It's not even good for you. All you're going to do is get angry. You're going to get angry, and it does no good because you can't do nothing about it. Um, Now, if we can start calling these guys out, you would not believe how. Oh, Sarah Huckabee Sanders did win. What I did was I've been watching what these guys have been doing that's in office, and I found out a lot of them are like been in there for a long time. I didn't vote for that. I'm not going to vote for someone that this is their third term. because that's the problem with our politics right now, is we don't have any laws that keeps them from going year and or 4 years and the next 4 years and the next 4 years. That's what happened with Biden. Now look what we got, or Bernie Sanders or Pelosi. Get this. How did Stacey Abrams win 100% in her district when half the people don't like her? See, it's a Feinstein thing and Pelosi thing. You know, uh, they win by 100% of the vote. Now, what I did notice, folks, this is kind of really really cool. I started going through and I started looking at the numbers. The numbers I want is how many Republicans voted and how many Democrats voted. So when your state, go back through and look, and you're going to see what I seen yesterday. There is almost double of the Republicans that are voting than there are Democrats. Sometimes it's only a few thousand, sometimes it's 10,000, but for the most part, we're talking. I seen one race here that it was here, and it was in, I believe, Georgia, where there was close to 900,000 Republican voters, and there was 69,000, let's see, 69,000 Democrats that voted. What's that tell you? Where's the Democrats at the polls? And so then I went back, because you can go and get, like, go to sites that have the facts. So I went back and I looked to see what the voting margin was, for the Democrats and the Republicans on how they voted. Well, it was about 50-50 about 10 years ago. Well, it's been getting less ever since. Well, when Trump got in office, we seen the spike in, we no longer seen that Republicans were not voting, because we were getting sick of the party. It was a bunch of old guys and we just didn't care. Well, we started seeing the increase. And what we're seeing in these primaries right now is it's not just that, oh, who cares? No, they're fighting. They're fighting, and they're fighting hard. The Democrats are. And they're going out in numbers, they say. They're going out in huge numbers. Well, when you look at the polls, um, um, Mary and um, Karen, and maybe even Susan, go look at your totals and you'll see what I'm talking about. You got to look at the total votes for a certain party, and then look at what the total votes were for the Democrat person on the other side. So you could see what they're going against each other with going into the major election in 2024. So what I'm seeing is, they've lost their voters. That's what I was seeing looking at these numbers. I didn't look at, oh, good, whoever I voted for won. Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But am very glad Sarah Sanders did get in office here. We do need her. But look at the numbers and see see the numbers difference on that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The Democrat voters are changing parties, is what it says. So then I went and looked at how many, the percentage of Democrats that's changing parties, even if it's to independent, and there is about a 40% increase from what we've seen in the 2020 election. So just in 2 years, we are seeing that Biden has disheartened his own voters, and now they're mostly going independent. I think they don't like Trump, and so if Trump gets in there, they could just go independent. Um, so now, as far as, yeah, but Karen, you could still go and look on election night and see what the numbers are. Because that's who's going to show up at the polls. And it's not usually the mail-ins that drive things overboard. It's usually the numbers that go into the polls. And then, like we've seen before, we have, if they go in after midnight, then we see the increase. Okay. So on voting night, when they close the polls and you start seeing those numbers, You get the numbers before they go into the next day, or the next day, take a look at them. Because, like I did this morning, the Republicans were still way over. So take a look at it, Karen and Susan and Mary, and see what you find out for your state. And even William, take a look at it. Because it's usually just under, when they list them all out for you on who won, on the total numbers. And I even noticed they were showing it on TV. Now, as far as Biden's promises, he, oh my gosh, folks, I couldn't believe it when I heard it, and I had to go back and listen to it again. He promised the transition America back to the 1870s, and he had this dreamy look on his face, and I'm thinking, what, really? And not only that, but we are looking at running. Get this: 13 states are going to run out of these. 13. No, it was 20 states in 13 days. Let me make sure I got this right. Yeah, 20 states in 13 days is going to run out of diesel fuel. Period. It's gone. So what are we going to do? Well, Biden's happy about this. He said it's going to be just like it was before we had all this, and how life was so simple back then. Well, we had more guns back then too, but that's beside the point. So he thinks if he takes us back to the 1800s, where there was no power and no gas, and everybody was riding horses, and his grandma must have told him some marvelous stories about horse and buggy days, because that's what he's. Get this: 60% of the people in the United States, when they say, "Are you going to get an electric car?" They said, "No, they're going to get a horse. It's cheaper." They're going to go back to horses. And this promise that Biden, he really thinks this is going to be wonderful. He said, we're going to survive this transition out of modernity, that we don't need to be so modern. Let's go back to the simple way of life with ice cream. I'm like, if he would have been eating an ice cream cone, then I think I would have slapped it out of his hand. He promised, 100% clean energy economy with net zero emissions in only a few decades. Okay, well, environmentalists now have pushed him, and when they decided to rejoin the Paris Agreement, when they decided to revoke permits, and they started shutting down the pipelines and the permits I'm talking about, they kept saying, well, the oil tycoons have got visas, they can drill. No, they're blocked. They can't use them. And now they blocked them for sure on it. So they can't say it's the oil tycoons just not wanting to drill. They are blocked. They can no longer drill. And so he said a few decades, okay? This isn't a few decades. This has only been 2 years. And Klaus Schwab and the World Economic they're freaking. They're freaking because they see people are waking up. They see people didn't run out and buy electric cars, is what I heard in a speech. They said people around the world, and this lady says, it makes me so angry that we showed them all the proof, all the data, and they didn't go out and buy electric cars. Well, for the most part, people can't afford it. They can't just go out and buy an electric car just because Biden got in office. Not only that, they never have showed the data. I'm waiting on it. I'm waiting for what happens next. And when you look at what's going on at this World Economic Davos, they're not offering what happens next. They just say we're going to be happier. And then, so then I heard Biden's promise that he's going to transition us to a happier world of like the 1800s. Well, uh, yeah, slaves in the 1800s. Um, does he want to go back to the plantations? You know, uh, I swear he's still racist, folks. How could you just, what, your buddy dies, so then after decades of being a racist, you decide, no, I'm not a racist no more. My buddy died. So what, did Senator Byrd bully him or something? No, he did this on his own. He was into segregation and school segregations all the way into the 80s. No one forced him to do that. The Clintons were the same way. They going into 1987, 88, 89, they still wanted to segregate the schools here. And Biden was all for it. That was part of the stuff I learned with the Dixie Mafia. Um, so this is basically yeah, thank you, Karen. Thank you for reminding me about that. Karen said even Camilla Harris called them a racist during the campaign. Yeah, she must have known something. I think it's the same thing I know. It's the fact that this man is probably still part of. Remember, they accuse us of what they do. Well, they have done nothing but call us white racists. They call us a racist. They say we're um, part of the KKK, skinhead, whatever. No, Antifa is Nazis. If you look at the original um, Antifa, they are Nazis over in the UK, and a lot of them keep going. A lot of them from over here fly over to the UK, help with their protests. Same way as BLM. Um, and you're saying, well, what about the BLM? Well, they're now starting to see that they are they're a little bit racist too. Now, now I learned, boy, the Black Panther aren't gonna like me for this one. I was learning growing up in California with the Black Panthers. I thought they were kind of cool, black guy, black power. There was all that going on. I was like, yeah, yeah, I was all into it. And then I found out they were going around hurting white people really bad for no reason. And isn't that what we're seeing today? It's almost, did they take us back first when they got in pre-office during the Trump administration? Were they going backwards into let's turn everyone racist, and then they go back? They're going to do away with the cars that we might have to um, do without gas. Or they're going back into the Great Depression, and then Biden's like, yeah, let's just go back to the 1800s. Yeah, everybody, it was simpler then. We can all sit around the candle at the table and read stories. Wow, this administration. Um, I got news, the good old days sucked behind a mule with only wood heat and too many children to feed. Yeah, you picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. Yeah, with 4 hungry children and the whatever in the field, no crops in the field or something like that. I'm bad at this. I ad lib songs, folks. Yeah, so this, and he's promising this. What gets me is there is a speed up by the globalists. They said, nope, we got to speed this up. Come on, guys. We really need to speed this up and tear it all down before 2024. So what's it tell you? Do you guys realize that gas price went up almost 40 cents in the last couple weeks? And they vow. They said, oh, we're going to take it to $6, $7, $10 an hour by the end of the summer. Well, are we going to have any gas left? What happens when we run out of gas in this country? The Biden promise, because he wants us on. He doesn't want vehicles. And get this, there's not enough. The other study that came out over the last few days is they do not have enough solar panels, wind generators, um, to sustain this summer. At least 50% of the states in the United States are going to see a brownout or power outages. And they said it's a warning. It's a warning to you guys, folks, because a lot of these places have been forced to go to solar panels, wind generators, and not depend on regular electric. That they are now looking at overloaded systems due to they didn't factor in all the people. And so we're going to have brownouts and power outages like you've never seen in history. That's why I think he wants us to be simpler and go back to the candle. And, let's not worry about power. Everybody can do without power, right? Yeah, not um, billions of people that want their phones and to be able to recharge their phones, and they're stuck on TV and going to the movies. And can you imagine all the businesses that will go out because of no electricity? Um, so this is the plan. So what's the agenda? They said, isn't it build back better? Build back better. Well, build back better is that we don't get that stuff. Ride a bike, they say. Get a bike. Well, you know what? I can't imagine grandma that's on a walker that needs to get to the store that she can get in her car and put her walker next to her, and she gets out the store, gets her walker. I've seen them see them do it, and they go into the store, and then they usually get one of them power chairs. Tell me how a grandma is going to ride a bike to the store that's in that condition. Or have you seen the price of bikes? Can you just run out and get everybody in the family a bike so they can get to school because they ride the bus? Are they saying, oh, use the transit? Well, a lot of those transits and a lot of the trains and a lot of the airplanes, guess what? Boy, William, you're going to love this one. Even our military uses gas, fossil fuels. So what? We just what? Tell Ukraine, sorry, we don't have no gas. And maybe we can get it from Russia while we try to beat Russia. The gas is running out. The diesel is going to be gone. The diesel is going to be gone in 13 days, folks. And get this, what he's going to get will last one day in this country. One day. What he plans on getting to help the truckers and get diesel. So he's not helping. He's definitely not. He's definitely not helping. Nadler is being pulled into court for some of his antics. And they're also talking, not only his antics, he's getting sued because I want to move on and get some of this stuff in there real quick. They redistrict his New York, I believe, and it's cut him out of the picture to where he is going head to head with one of the most popular people in that part of the district. So it's not like grandma is dead and our military will fail. Yeah. How's grandma supposed to get to the doctor? I mean, I think about it, and my doctor's kind of here in town, but I got some in Little Rock. Now, how am I going to get to Little Rock? Um, Uber? Well, no, Uber's going to be out of gas. Well, there's those electric cars. Um, and then the electric cars are catching on fire and their seatbelts are exploding and the batteries are can't be recharged like they said. We're seeing 8 to 10 hour wait for these cars to be recharged. Even Tesla, that's got the fastest, they say less than an hour. Well, they just had a line of a whole bunch of cars that took 8 to 15 hours to recharge the car. Well, by then your boss is like, forget it, you're fired. Or is that what they want? And they say, oh, we can work from home. Well, if we don't have no electric, there ain't no working from home on a computer that we can't charge or plug in. See, it just ain't working. And when so my quest in um, calling a lot of these senators, when I ask them what the plan is, What's the Build Back Better? What are we going to build? What are we going to build? They get mad and hang up on me. Well, why can't they just answer? If they know and they're out there, Build Back Better, yeah, yeah, and then they don't. Um, Electric cars during a brownout, yeah, yeah. Thank you. That's a good statement right there, William. Is electric cars without power during a brownout? Um, now, Linda, what now? Public transit, the buses use gas or diesel, so maybe we could get these bus drivers to get a bicycle built for 50, and we just all jump on the back and hope he can hold us all up. And I don't mean to joke about this because you can easily make big jokes out of this, but it's real. This is real. And what concerns me moving into the truckers, if they run out of diesel, that's our food delivery. And so when I thought about this yesterday, I called up um, uh, um, Schiff's office. Schiff's office, they like to answer the phones, and Elizabeth Warren's office does too. Um, and asked, "What are we going to do?" Well, I'll leave that question. I said, "No, no, 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 no. You're in that office because they want to act like they're dumb and they just answer the phones. No, they hear it. They hear what's going on." I said, "No. If this, what are you going to do when this happens?" Well, I can't answer that. I said, "Yes, you can on a personal note. You can. You can answer that." Um, Click. Yep, they hang up. Why? Because there's no answers. And I'm finding there is no answers. There is no Build Back Better. It's the bottom of the pit. And so why? Why would our politicians agree to listening to a Nazi in another country that's running the world economic or world forum system that is telling them they must do this? Um, with the Bernie Sanders, we're all going to die. Well, you know what? They're saying that right now it wouldn't help. That if we go on the track that they have led and the models they put before us, we've got 2 years left, and it's all gone. That's why they sped it up. That's what they're using now. This is what they're using now at the World Economics, and that there's no hope because China isn't doing it, India isn't doing it. All these countries aren't getting on board with us. And if we're the only ones, we can't save the planet on our own. And they said we got about 2 years left. Well, yeah, and scare the bejesus out of people. And if and get and this goes kind of back to the school shootings. You're telling these kids it's hopeless. What do they have to live for? You know, that's so sad. That's so sad. Not just our food delivery, our military support ends. Yeah, we are under siege. This is war. This is war by an old man, probably 90 years old, sitting in another country telling the world that they have to do this. My quest is to find out why. Why? Is it a Hitler thing? Is he mad because we stopped him and his buddy Hitler? Is it that he just he got on the wrong track of liberals that like Bernie Sanders that convinced him of this? There's a reasoning for this, and we're running out of time to find out an answer to it. Um, and I looked into climate change and I looked into this whole everything that they want to run right now, and it makes no sense. When you run the numbers, it makes no sense. And I'm hoping, I think Friday morning, since they have this world forum, I'm going to have to do my show on climate. Because I'm going to show you guys of what our world looks like as all the years. If you can't look at, and this is what they're doing, they're looking from 1940 on to say that these fossil fuels are horrible. Well, what about what happened before 1940s? What about 1900? What about 200 years ago? What about 3 or 400 years ago when the earth was hotter then than it is right now? Now, how do you explain that one? We didn't have cars back then. Who had cars 400 years ago? I think it's like 2 or 400. I'll have the numbers right by then. But now think on that. Even if it was a 200 years ago, the earth was actually warmer then than it is now. So what's the rush? What did they do back then to get over it? It's called they thought they were going into an ice age. That's where it goes up and down. And at first it was global warming. No, it's global cooling. Global warming, global cooling. But I mean, think on that, today. If the world was warmer 200 years ago or longer, it might even be 100, 200, 400 years ago, what were they doing then that made it that hot that they stopped? Because maybe that'll help us out. But how come the world didn't end back then and it's going to end now if we don't stop all this? Huh? It's about global control. That's right. And that's what we're seeing. It's a political control by globalists that I guess they're bored. That's all I'm thinking. They're just bored. They want to stir a little trouble for the rest of us. You know, um, it makes you want to kick them in the shins, is what I do. So anyway, folks, share this today because I got a lot of info out today on looking into this, and yeah, it's amazes me of the people and things that just pop into my lap. I mean, it's like, how did I end up being a part of the school shootings for so long? How did I end up working for the school? How did this whole global warming, cooling, how did I end up even sticking with ecology from my high school and college years? It just happens. And you would not believe the people every day that I meet that says, oh, I'll give you some info. Call my office and I'll give it to you. It just falls in my lap. And I take it as a blessing that I'm going to give it to you guys as I get it. And, for nothing, because I think you guys should know and it'll put your mind at ease. So we're not all gonna die. Oh my gosh. Bernie Sanders might die before a lot of us. He's getting up there and he's thinking about running for president again. We're all gonna die, man. Yep. Well, if we're all gonna die in 2 to 8 years, what difference? He don't need to run because he's going to die anyway. We're all going to die. And see, that was my whole point of him running for office is why you want to run for office if we're just all going to, if you're going to die? What good are you going to do? What purpose and what are you going to change so we all don't die? And he never did anything. He just changed it. He was hoping we all forgot about it. And then he added 8 more years. And then he got Al Gore on bandwagon with him too. So, but I think I got everything I had listed. And Nadler, he's going up against a tough opponent. He might be taken out of office. Yay, because he's too old. The man can't hardly even talk or walk. Not only that, he pulls his pants up like Urkel does. Why does he pull his pants up to his chin? I never. First time I seen him, I laughed till I cried, and that was back. He did it back then with the Clintons. I was like, who is this guy? Where did the Clintons find this guy? And all these years later, he's still doing. I guess it's to each his own on how they dress. That's all I have to say. I don't want to make fun of them. Check your live results of the elections and see how many Democrats actually voted and how many Republicans, and you're going to see a surge. And they're right. We got to take this country back, not only now, but in 2024. And we all got to jump in and help to change this around. And the more that this country progresses and becomes wonderful, I don't think there'll be a Democrat that will vote for any Democrat politician ever again. They're mad. They're angry. When I was at, moving around at Toad Suck and even question people in the store of what's got, what party are you? And I'm only going to when I run into a Republican, I just kind of say, yeah, I'd rather talk to a Democrat. So when I get a Democrat, first of all, they're hostile. And then I said, no, no, hold, give me a moment. I said, has Biden kept his promises? No, they say. Are you happy with the country? No. What are you least happy about? And they say it's the food cost, the gas cost, all this that we all complain about. They're just as mad. And they're going to lose the votes. They are going to lose the votes. Um, so we can make this country great again. We can see what it used to be, but we're going to all have to work very hard, and we all have to get in there and vote. And even these younger kids, they say, "Well, what my vote ain't going to count. I don't know how to vote." Well, you know what? It's self-explanatory, and the people at the polls will even help you if you don't understand. And tell them that. Come on, kid, get in the car. Let's go vote. You're going to vote. You're 18, and you're not going to back out of this. There's people that can help you, but we need your vote. And let's just slime them at the polls, because that's what we have to do. We have to. And is it wrong if we become a one party rule in this country? I don't think any Republican or GOP member or any of them want it that way. It's the Democrats made it that way. Um, and of course, they got time. If we get totally reelected, it gives them 4 years to take a look at what they did wrong and move. It did with the GOP when they got to where we had so many old guys in there and nobody wanted to do nothing. Nobody wants to stand up. And we still have that, but it's better. Maybe they'll realize that these lifelong politicians are the ones that have screwed their party and that they're just in it for the money and the houses, um, the houses, the popularity, everything that goes with being very, very rich and being powerful. And I think that's all they were in it for. And I think we need to pull the rug out from underneath them, wrap them up in it, and pitch them. Yep, that's what we need to do. We need to demand better outcomes. And we need to get rid of the GOP rhinos that are in there, like Liz Cheney, that isn't really a Republican. We even had one well, I won't go there. Um, we've got people in very high places that were and still now, and there has beens and they're out of office. Some of them are still in there that are saying they are Republican, and they will be. Um, they say they're radical Republicans that just side with independents or the Democrat Party because they like what they're pushing. No, they're Democrats. These are Democrats, and I learned that here when we found out that 50% of the Republicans in office here, when the Clintons left, were actually Democrats. And we tried to warn everybody. We really did. And they didn't listen to us. Sometimes, we wish that the world would have listened to us and we could have warned them of the Democrat socialism, communism, and the corrupt politicians that were in office, and that we just pushed them along. We just pushed them along. All right, folks. Parties come and go. That's right. Um, we definitely need to, and you know what? Take a look to see who's at the World Economic or Davos, and if you recognize those people and you see that they're Republicans, don't never vote for them again. Don't never vote for these people ever again, because they're the ones plotting with this old guy to tear down the world. And now there have been, oh my goodness, there has been a place in, my friend in Kenya told me this, and then I'll quit and go. Um, there was a town of about 300 down in Africa that they all starved to death. There was no food. And now the birds are coming and killing off the crops in Africa. And they don't know what they're going to do. They say it could be 6 months to a year, and they could see hundreds of people starving to death in third world countries. And did this world economic dude, Klaus Schwab, even care? Did he even think about that? Nope, just buy an electric car. All right, folks. Um, Me and I don't know. I got to check with William and see what we got planned for tonight, and see what we're gonna do. And of course, there will be a show tonight. Who knows? It might be on this whole school thing. It might be on the world economics. Not much is coming out of Ukraine. I know they're blocking. They're wanting to send in ships to get um, the grain in, food in, and the grain out. That's about what they're working on. And if not, we'll talk. I'll talk to William and see what we want to push for tonight. But there is a show tonight. Um, so with that, folks, you have a wonderful Wednesday, and we will see you tonight. And start looking at them polls if you've already had votes, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And that will put a smile on your face to know that, you know what, they're going down. They're going down. Their numbers are down to next to nothing. And a lot of them are going to lose out on the 2024 election. All right, folks, we will see you tonight. And you guys definitely have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, folks.